What's up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. Welcome to PCP Movie Night. It's the Movie of the Week club, basically, where we watch a movie and we gather each week and we discuss it live here with us, the Excitable PCP crew we are, and you out there in the PCP Army. Thank you so much for being here. Station and Popeye Doyle is the subject of the movie tonight that we'll be talking about, The French Connection. We are in the second week of ActionFest 2022. And we're going to be talking about a great movie tonight, and we got to have a great panel to go along with a great movie. How do you follow up Lethal Weapon, all four films? How do you follow that up? Well, you follow it up with The French Connection. Best Picture winner, Best Director winner for William Friedkin, Best Writing. I think Gene Hackman won too. I think he won the Academy Award. Speaking of Academy Awards, he's never won one, but it's been on his bucket list for quite a while. It's Jelani. What's up, Jelani? Do you pick your feet in Poughkeepsie?
I do every once in a while, man. I love picking my feet. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You get all the stuff, the matter from your feet, from the socks that you wear all day. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, all right. Pretty good to be here. Talk about a good movie.
Exactly. This movie takes place in New York, and it's very much, apparently, it's considered to be a really good reflection of the reality of certain aspects of New York at that time. And straight from New York, live on Monday night, it's Joe Corallo. What is up?
Hey, not much. Just here chatting about an incredible movie with some incredible people.
Oh, hell yeah. You must know who the rest of the panel is, because speaking of incredible people, we have the incredible edible Mike 06. What is up, my man? You're muted, bruh.
Every time. Without fail.
That is my bit, and I will continue to do it every time. You all forgot, this film also got Best Editing. Oscar for editing.
Yeah, you're right. We forgot that.
Picture, writer, director, actor, editing. So.
But it didn't win for Best Costumes for some reason. Speaking of Best Costumes, it's Brooks. What is up, Brooks?
Hey.
Nice.
Hey. All right. So I got this new background. I used it last week for a show. We were talking about 80s films, but I used this and I was like, man, this looks really good as the background. It's E.T. It's at night, movie night. Get it? All right. So we're talking about 1970.
Night. We're talking about movies.
Yeah, man, we've covered that. All right, so let's get into it. Welcome to ActionFest 2022. We're talking about The French Connection. This is 1971, directed by William Friedkin. It was written by Ernest Tiedemann, and it's based on a book by Robin Moore, which is based on an actual case which is based on these two actual undercover New York detectives who pursued this whole giant drug trade of heroin and shit coming in from France, right? The French connection. The idea of the title being that there's a Spanish connection, there's a Harlem connection, there's an Italian connection, there's a French connection, and at that time, the French connection was the biggest drug, import business going on, right? So this is to me a fantastic film. It won all of those Academy Awards, but we don't give a shit about Academy Awards here for the most part. This is an awesome movie. Gene Hackman is absolutely fantastic in it. It is a dynamic movie. It has this documentary type feel. It feels real, grounded. All of that is meticulously kind of put in through the cinematography, but the performances are brilliant. And William Friedkin did some crazy, almost Kubrick-esque type things with his actors in this movie to get them to a certain point. But it works. It works in the film. This film is to me brilliant. It's not one of those like deep resonating stories, but it is efficient. It is nonstop. It is everybody talks about how this movie has one of the greatest car chases in cinema history. That is true, but the entire film is a chase, and they never let up on that. It is super economical when it comes to the script. There was a lot of improv involved. There was a lot of breaking lots of laws while they were making this film, like that chase sequence. They didn't have no permits for that shit. They did it, and some of those collisions were real, right? So I love this film. I hadn't seen it in several years. Not quite 20 like some of the movies we've been covering lately, but I loved it. I loved it again on the rewatch. It was fast. It was just a great pace, great performances. Gene Hackman acts the shit out of this movie, and it's incredibly edited, like Mike was pointing out, because it won an Academy Award for that. Jelani, overall, and thank you everybody out there checking out the show tonight live. Jelani, overall, what'd you think of The French Connection?
It's all right. It's okay. Nah, this is a great film. This thing is like, it's a stellar buddy cop movie. It's I guess the origin of buddy cop movies. I watched this like really young, and I didn't understand like half the things that were going on, because it was kind of like weird to me, like see all this stuff and like, and I do want to preface this by saying, I have to always say this with these kind of films, fuck the police, but but these cops, yeah, especially Gene Hackman as a racist cop, I cannot stand Popeye Doyle, the way he acts, the way he is. But I know it's a product of the time, the time of what the film is. So I can overlook certain parts of it, but fuck the police. It's just,
I like NWA as well.
Yes, I do as well. But I mean, the fact that they stumble, like they go out to a nightclub and stumble on the greatest heroin ring ever made, like it's to do this crazy drug bust with a crazy Lincoln Continental just sitting out in the yard. I mean, there's just so many like weird, scenarios in this film that I just totally enjoy. The car chase, of course, the car chase we will hopefully we talk about a little bit more in depth. Yeah, that was real. And it like so many people like could have been killed. And I love how I found out that it was like Bill Hickman, the guy that was the stunt driver for the car. Of course, Gene Hackman was driving some of the scenes, but Bill Hickman was driving them as well. He's also the FBI agent that gets shot in the movie. And I was like, I didn't know that guy was the guy that was driving the car during that scene. It is so clean. So like,
there's the whole story where like William Friedkin was like, no, really go haul ass down this bit, right? Like go 90 miles an hour and on. And they were like, well, then if you think you know how to do it so well, get in the car with me. And he did. And he was like, it was fucking crazy.
He shot it from the back, which is nuts. And I'm like, oh no. Like, and I love that chase scene. It is so clean. And it's just like, and every time I've watched it, in fact, I stopped the movie. I watched it basically 2.5 times. So I only watch it up to the scene where it's the chase. where it's the straight up chase, because it is so awesome to chase an L train with a car. Who ever thought that thing was? But I love to talk about that because that's how great this movie is, because of that scene. It's just so, it's so marvelous. So I know we're gonna get into other things, but this movie is just so. It's a touchstone. It's a spot of its time. You'll never get anything kind of like this. It's just the bubble. It's gritty. It's like you said before, but it's like lived in New York. This is the real New York during the 70s, and it tells you that story. And I'm like, dang, I really don't want to live back then. That sounds horrible sometimes. But yeah, I really enjoy this film. It's pretty awesome.
So overall, you like it?
I like it a lot.
All right, that's nice. I find the movie also feels a bit frantic, which I think is a fascinating bit of this movie. Speaking of frantic, we have frantic and jolly Joe Corallo here. Joe, what do you think about this film overall?
Overall, it's incredible. Certainly for all the reasons mentioned. One thing about this that I didn't think of the other times I've seen this that like sunk in was this movie came out before Watergate, and they go down to Washington, D.C. to talk more openly about the deal because it's easier to talk about that stuff in Washington, D.C. than it is in New York. And it's like just that alone, like just like taking that in, being like, oh my God, it's oddly like prophetic in that way. And it's been something I've been thinking about like since last night, since I got to watch it again.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even think of that.
So you think it's excellent. You like it, right? And we're gonna dive into all of that. Speaking of diving, Mike Matthews was on his way to being an Olympic USA representative for diving, but it was like kiddie pool diving. And then at the last minute, they were like, you know what? It's not going to be an Olympic sport at all. So Mike was kind of disappointed. However, Mike now has a great career being a panelist on PCP Movie Night. Mike, what did you think of The French Connection overall?
Yeah, it was only the only person not to be busted for steroids. There's a big steroid scandal in that.
Because that helps diving.
Yeah, it does.
It makes it more aerodynamical.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that it does. It's a great movie. I like it. It's a wonderful film. I thought about doing it for a cruise choice, and then you told me that you're going to do it for ActionFest, so I was just like, no, I'm going to pass then. But it's a great film altogether. I love the cat and mouse of the subway scene.
Yeah.
It's another scene where they didn't have permission to film, but since all their friends were cops, like that's the great thing about this film is like we don't need permission or permits. We have cops.
Yeah. So the actual Cloudy and Popeye were there on set pretty much the entire time. They're in the movie.
In the movie, yeah.
The captain is Popeye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
their captain or whatever, or lieutenant or whatever it is. They're actually in the film. So yeah, they would get the cops to like clear things off. They had their friends go up and stop the freeway for the traffic jam scene. Like they made a real traffic jam, all that kind of stuff. And one of my favorite bits is in the scene when Popeye goes and shakes down the predominantly black bar. Those are all cops. Those are all cops. And I thought that was really cool. Like those are their friends. Those are cops. And apparently that actually happened because that came from Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider would go and do these, what are they called? Tag-alongs, ride-alongs, something like that, right? And so they would do those, and that actually happened. They've witnessed that. They told William Friedkin they put it into the movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Mike.
even because that whole scene when he says, here comes Popeye or here's Popeye, like that he really did that in real life. So, but both bar scenes, the one at the beginning it's all a bunch of cops. So, but then like the subway car scene, everybody that you see in that film is just a real civilian, just minding their own business, just trying to get
confused as shit.
Like, what's going on? Just don't look at the camera, okay? Like it's just so. But yeah, I mean, it's great. And then there's when you break down the cinematography of it, the lighting, and the editing of the film, it just puts the whole production side of it. There's so much more to this film than just the writing and the acting. It's kind of like everything really comes together to seal the deal to make this, a really solid film.
Technically, it's a masterwork. Like it really, really is. Right? The way they put the film together, the way they shot it. We'll get to all of that stuff. Speaking of getting to all of that stuff, Brooks is always getting into all of that stuff. Brooks, what did you think about this film overall? And I just want to say it's nice to have a movie where it's nobody's first time. We all like this film, so that's why we're here tonight. What do you think, Brooks?
This all right. I mean, I think for me, the thing that I don't like as much about this movie is this. I'm not as interested in the story, but I like the execution of the story. Like I like the characters and but the whole cops trying to bust a drug dealer thing is like so played out. Like it's been done like so many times now. Like I'm sure when this movie came out, it was pretty new.
Brooks, this is 1971, bro.
This is how buddy cop movies were formed, man.
The cops busting drug dealer story is just so cliche now. But I mean, it is I love the action scenes in this movie and the music and but overall it's like I think it's all right,
No, I feel what you're saying because I think Casablanca is just okay because I've seen so many romances. It's been done.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding, man. What the fuck was that? Like, so you've seen just like what? All right, Brooks. All right,
that's what I felt this time, dude. Like,
no. You gotta be real.
Right.
All we ask you.
It's got no William.
Is to be
not
real.
enough William Blake.
My favorite scene was the train station where dude like steps off the train, and then Popeye immediately and he just like steps back.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that's smooth as fuck.
That shit happens but he does it like 3 or 4 times, right? Like they keep going back and forth.
But the last time when he finally gets him, because it looks like he's like stepping out and he's gonna go in, and then Gene Hackman just like pop and he just steps back. I was like, that was dope. I like that.
That's a good scene for a movie you didn't like that much. But all right.
Well,
anyway.
I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm just saying
it's not. It doesn't have enough anti-authority subtext for you, does it?
Yeah, dude. It's a fucking cop movie, dude.
All right. Speaking of cops, this movie is populated with them, but it does have some really good performances. There is a technical level of skill in this movie that is magnificent, but the performances are really solid. Lots of great ones to choose from. I'm going to go first because I'm going to go Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman. I mean, come on, y'all. It's the easy pick, and I expect more of you of the panel to be able to tell us some other characters that you like. But Popeye Doyle, it's amazing. Gene Hackman had a really interesting role. He didn't really like the real-life Popeye. He did not. Like, didn't really get along. Yeah. He thought he was racist. He wasn't comfortable with the level of how racist he was going to have to be. William Friedkin was basically like, sorry, bro, this is the realism of it. This is how he is. William Friedkin, I think, was trying to make the most real movie he could. And Gene Hackman didn't really get along with William Friedkin that much because Billy, as they call him, was intentionally trying to provoke Gene Hackman to find this level, this well of anger and resentment and drive that would actually be Popeye Doyle. And I think he actually brought that out of Gene Hackman. I think Gene Hackman brought that out of himself, and I loved his performance in this movie. The whole picking your feet and Poughkeepsie thing, that cracks me up, but that is from real life. I love his performance. It's amazing. Everybody can speak on it a little bit if they want, but I want to know what other characters, because Gene Hackman's the obvious one, but what else do you got? Jelani, what's a character you want to highlight?
I was going to say Popeye Doyle from French Connection 2, but okay. We'll skip him now. We will go, I guess, well, going back real quick to Gene Hackman. Yeah, I know I didn't know he didn't like the real guy. And they didn't get along, and he was really, really apprehensive about why he, had to do this so much. And of course, yeah, William Friedkin was like on his butt like Kubrick, like ruining his life. Like, you got to do this. You got to do it. So, like, I used to study this movie because it was just so weird to see, Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor is less evil than Popeye Doyle. And it's just, I was like, wow, you don't really see Gene Hackman, in a role like that. Because, I've always liked Gene Hackman. And then I turn around and see him in this movie, and I'm like, oh, that's a little off-putting. But at the same time, he's just such a wonderful character. And I know we're going to talk about it a little more, but he wasn't my first pick. I'm just saying I really liked his character. He doesn't have layers. He's a straight-up racist cop who just happens to fall into this freaking awful heroin ring, and he kills people to get to it. And it's just... He's just a prick the whole time, and it's just so clean that he's that from beginning to end. So yeah, he won the Academy Award for it. I'm pretty sure I know why. So he pretty much nailed it. But anyway, away from him, I'll go to our antagonist, Frog One. I'm gonna do the French Connection himself. I believe it was Fernando Rey. He is. Of course, he's the guy in the chase, that lovely subway chase, the cat and mouse game. He's so eloquent, and he's so regal, and he's just here because he wants to do this simple drug trade. But he knows these cops, who, by the way, these cops are the worst tailors I've ever seen. Like, I don't know how they're following people and getting away with it, like in New York City. It was just so weird. But
Sure.
but the guys see them coming. Like, even when they're chasing them in the car, they know there's someone following them. They're terrible at this. They're absolutely terrible at it. They get the job done, but it's just terrible. But I like his character. I like I said, his elegance. I like just, how he has this free-flowing lifestyle. And then you watch the sequel, and it gets a little bit weirder about how they do it with the sequel. But I just really like that guy. He's so damn suave to be, he seems like he wouldn't be a heroin dealer, like the main heroin dealer. And plus, I wouldn't go out there by myself. Of course, he had the guy in the chase scene with him, but I thought he would broker that deal with someone else. He needs a proxy or something, like a butler that goes, the heroin butler that goes to New York City to broker the deal, so he doesn't go himself.
The heroin home like a heroin butler, kids.
I need a heroin butler. Send the heroin butler. He'll take care of it all. But yeah.
Oh shoot! I left my heroin butler at home.
When they cast him, so like I think that William Friedkin, I saw him saying that he wanted a specific dude from a certain movie who was a French guy, and they were like, all right, and they brought in this other dude, and he met him, and he realized that first of all, he goes, first of all, I don't know how to speak French, and I'm Spanish. And then like William Friedkin was like, you guys got me the wrong people, because he wasn't confident in Hackman or this dude, but wound up being very enthralled with their performances and felt like he pulled it out. He does a really great job. I love the bit where he's like waving at him in the subway. Apparently that's based on real life. Joe, what's a character / performance you want to highlight?
There are so many. You can highlight most of them. For this, for the purposes of me talking about it, I will go with Pierre Nicolai, the sniper, and going through that chase scene. Yeah, because he's just this like kind of he's just hanging out in the background kind of thug, and then it just gets to a point where he's just like straight up like, "I'll just take care of him," and they're just like,
and it was
really?
unauthorized. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, really? You're gonna take care of him? It's like, yeah, we're gonna wrap up by Friday is a problem. Let's just take care of him.
It's like Morph in that X-Men animated series when he's like, clear sailing from here.
Yeah.
And on top of that car chase scene, incredible. But the start of it, where he's just a sniper on a bill, just kills this woman, walking, is just like, that scene is so intense. He's still firing. People legit don't know what's going on. He's just screaming like it's a sniper. It's, you know, like Popeye's like getting his gun, like, you know, running into the building, like all of that. And just the way he plays it, where when he's on the run, he's like genuinely comes off like he is scared. He knows this isn't going to end well, but he just has to keep going. So he's just like, I gotta get on this train. I'm on this train. I can't just have this stop because then like I'll just die. So like it's very, you know, that he's just like killing people on the train. He's trying to get like all of that is just done so well, including the looking at Popeye, turning around, being like, maybe I can just run away, like keep running, and it doesn't work out. And he pops him in the back like Deckard does to a replicant.
Yeah,
and it's just it's great.
That's murder, man. You'll shoot an unarmed man in the back.
That was a big deal when they were filming that. They were like, you can't do that. You can't have the cop shoot an unarmed man in the back. And he's like, why not? Like, this is how it's done.
Yeah, good for him to be like, you assholes do that, so this is in the movie. Oh well.
Like, we watched y'all. We know what y'all do, man. We're letting all y'all's secrets out, man. Absolutely.
What about you? Poster. It's on the poster.
And it becomes a poster image. What about you, Mike? What performance you want to highlight?
Well, I was gonna say the story behind the actor that plays the French kingpin, you should say. The director only knew a name. He's like, this is the name. He heard a name. He's like, yes, this is the guy that I want. Go find me this guy and sign him. So they signed the contract before even meeting the guy. So when they went to go meet, it was just one of those like, you are not the person that I wanted, but I've already signed you. So crap, my bad.
Better learn some French, dude.
So the character that I want to talk about is the 1971 four-door V8 Pontiac Le Mans. So,
okay,
the car is its own character. It did Le Mans sales. It's just like after Bullitt, you know, Mustang sales shot up after Bullitt. In this one, the Le Mans sales shot up. Pontiac was, you know, riding high. So, but it's a great car. It's very durable. But it's just it's iconic. It's one of the top chase scenes. So you're gonna have the car is gonna stand out, and everybody knows, like, it's like, oh hey, like not a lot of people know what car this is because it's just a very generic car that he just grabs off the side of the road. But you know, the Le Mans is something that needs to be, you know, recognized just a little bit. That's all.
That's an awesome car.
All right, well, good pick.
Not the color. I would not chosen brown.
Well, in 71, that was the
70s color, man.
Yeah.
Everything was browns, orange, and yellows. It's like 90s comic book coloring. Anyway, Brooks, what's the character you want to highlight?
Well, I like the guy, I guess the tester, the guy who tested the heroin.
Oh,
he had the big old sunglasses.
Okay, yeah.
It's like he just looked like a dude who was just like a junkie that they like, oh, this guy like he's a junkie, but he knows a lot about heroin. So let's hire him.
It's like the smart junkie.
Yeah, he's like, this is good stuff. I can tell you.
He's the functioning
joke where he's like,
he's the functioning heroin.
He's like the small one.
Yeah, he's the functioning heroin addict, right?
Yeah. I love that little joke because he's like, he grabs the big bag and dude tells him like, no, the small one. And he looks at him and he's like, oh, I had to try.
Yeah.
I thought that dude was Guy Pearce for a second until I realized this movie was from 1971. I was like, oh wait, he looks like Guy Pearce in the beginning of Iron Man 3. You know, when he's like,
he's got the hair.
They're using real heroin, by the way. I guess they were just like, police buddies, can you get us some real heroin? So they're like, that's the real test they use or whatever. They're like, this movie, for the way that it was shot, it's a studio picture. And they had like $1.5 million budget. They knew they were going to go over budget, so they employed guerrilla filmmaking tactics. So even though it was a studio picture with the budget, it was filmed like an independent film, right? It's like guerrilla style. They're in the streets causing traffic jams. They're literally driving this car underneath the L train or whatever, like with no permits, hitting cars. I hope that the woman with the baby carriage was placed there. Man, I hope that wasn't real. There's a couple of women with baby carriages in danger in this movie.
It's staged. Yeah. As far as I know, it was staged.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, man. I'm pretty sure it is.
Because they had to suit the pants off them, man.
But the style and structure of this movie is amazing. I think it's impeccably structured. It has a scintillating pace that never lets up. Like I said, it's a continuous chase. In real life, they were at the, the Copacabana, right? They're there. They notice this group of people spreading a lot of money around, and they recognize some of them as being part of the drug hierarchy in New York at that time. And that's what sets them off. And the fact that it just does a great job of showing the obsession of Popeye Doyle and the enabling of his partner, Sonny, who they call Cloudy. And that's a real life thing too, because his name is Sonny. He calls him Cloudy, and they call him Popeye because he likes to run around and apparently has a thing with women in high boots. If you notice, they actually play that up in the movie. It's the high boots. I thought it was the ass on the chick riding the bike, but apparently it was the boots. So they had set that up in a scene before.
She had no ass. Oh,
I was just joking. It's a bit, man. Anyway, so I love the style of this movie. I love the way that it's structured. The cinematography is brilliant. It was meticulously lit to look like it was naturally lit. It looks like there's no exterior lighting. There's nothing, but the cinematographer would accentuate the natural lighting going on, and he was using a longer exposure so that it would have that more like real life, like it feels like you just show up with a camera and you film some shit. We know that you can't do that. Even doing this show, I got to have this bright ass light pointed at me. You know what I'm saying? So the way that it's done to look so grounded and realistic to me is top notch. Great pace, great dialogue. Love it. Jelani, what do you think about the style and structure?
Oh yeah, I agree with everything you said, man. It's shot well. It's a breakneck pace for this movie. Like it's nonstop, and you're just here for the ride. You're just here to see what's going on. I like the fact that they're chasing the whole time, even though they're terrible at it. It's just I like how the bad guys are just looking over their shoulder and they know what's gonna happen.
And a lot of that chasing is waiting.
Yeah,
right. And you
it's
really
a lot
get
of
the sense
waiting.
of that. Yeah,
that the waiting for the Lincoln Continental when they pull when Sal pulls the car up and just leaves it there. I'm like, I still don't know why he did that, but he just leaves that car there, and like the guys that like the Mexican guys that like drive past the car 3 times. It's like, hey, that's the 3rd time they've done that, and they just sit there and Popeye's like, that car's dirty. I know that car's dirty. We're gonna sit here if it takes all night. And he sits there, and I'm like, wow. And they're just, and it's a little slow at that part, but it still feels like still going. You still have to find it. And like, what is with this car? Why do we have this car? And then that scene happens, and then they get the car, and they're like, we searched every piece of this car. We can't find any heroin. What the crap are you talking about? Are you nuts? He's like, next thing we got to check is the running panels. So he checks the running panels, and the heroin's there. And I don't know what it is about that.
That dude, by the way, that dude who's like, the only thing I have left to check is the under panels or whatever. That's the real dude in real life who did that.
Who does that?
It's like, it's so weird. They got all their cop buddies in this film.
Yeah, it's all of it. And it's the realism of this movie too. Yeah, that really gets me. Yeah, I love how they just do it, like you said before, at this independent level, high budget movie. And they do it so well. It's just like there should be so many fines. So many people should have gotten arrested. So many things should have happened. But it's 1971. Like nowadays, you couldn't even try to do this. You couldn't even, I mean, Twitter would have ruined it before it happened. Somebody would have leaked that shit. They're like, hey, we're gonna drive a car under an elevated train. Let's do that and as fast as we can. And somehow that's gonna get leaked on Twitter. So
Well, that's what we love
it's-
about like the Fulci film Zombie, for instance. Like they
Mhm.
filmed that New York scene with no permits.
With
They
no
just went
permit.
out, brought some, like a van full of zombies out on the fucking freeway, and we're
And
like,
walked.
let's just film this real quick.
'Cause
You
New
just
York
imagine
costs too
being that
much.
person, being like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, why are
Oh,
these
yeah.
people in makeup trying to eat me? You know, it's pretty cool how they did things. I mean, it was the wild, wild west in the 70s as far as filmmaking, past Cecil B. DeMille killing everyone in sight. But this was just nuts.
Yeah.
And I love how the pacing is perfect for this movie. It is a great, I don't know, it's a masterclass of how to film a movie of this magnitude and make it so well, based on a true story, also based on this great novel, and to make the screenplay, like the dialogue in the screenplay, from what I heard, is like, you know, New York speak, because they went through several scripts to try to get this right, and they couldn't get it right.
Yeah, they started with the guy who did the script on Shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that they came up with the dialogue for this movie, like the picking your feet, and I know that was Doyle's like actual stuff, but most of this is improv too. Like it just feels like it flows the way it's supposed to flow in a gritty crime drama like this.
Yeah, it's improv, but it's all based on a reality.
On dialogue. Yeah,
and it's based on like a reality, which is fascinating. The sense of realism in this film.
Mm-hmm.
This was a proponent coming from the French New Wave at the time, Godard and all that kind of shit, right? Like this was a new influence into American cinema, and the French Connection hit at that right moment, and I think that's why it like won over the Academy. Speaking of winning over the Academy, well, one day when Beckstar gets made into a movie, Joe will be wowing over the Academy. What's that, Joe?
Here's hopeful. Let's check it out.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful. Anyway, Joe, what did you think about the style and structure of this film?
No, I mean, again, I don't disagree with anything that's been said so far. The fact that there are no sets and it's all just shot out there, it makes it feel more expensive than it is. Like this movie, like if they spent more money to build sets, it would have looked cheaper. Like it's sort of the irony of it all. But all of that, how gritty, how disgusting, like the warehouse was, like at the end, like you know, because the first thing you think of, like, you know, that I thought of, you know, again watching this, I'm like, that's so disgusting. They would have spent so much money to build a fake disgusting warehouse.
Yes,
like,
and it would not have looked near as cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, all of that, and the way the movie just respects its audience and doesn't talk down to anyone at all, doesn't explain anything. It makes everything is just clear in context. Like the straw hat in the back seat in the window that's supposed to be like, so you know it's an undercover cop. A less confident director would have had so much shitty narration throughout this whole movie. It would have been like, that's the signal we all cops put out there, so that way the other cops know we're an undercover. And like, you would have had stuff like that. You would have had a whole bit when he gets the one guy in the bathroom, and then it turns out like he's, you know, the informant and all that. And I could have just imagined it the same way of like, see here, this is an informant. We've been working it like, and the movie never does that because it treats the audience with a little bit of respect, and I appreciate that. And
you know, I feel like you're calling out Hellraiser 5 Inferno right now, but it's okay. But I mean, you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, there were a lot of movies like well after this that would still do that kind of stuff, even like, you know, cop movies and things like that, or TV shows where they just treat you like you're the dumbest sack of shit that's ever walked on the face of the earth. And the fact that they don't do this and all of the other elements, it's just like a perfect storm for a great viewing experience.
Yeah, I love it. It's an incredibly subtle movie. Like, it does not take the audience's intelligence for granted in the slightest at all. It just lets it go. And it respects the audience. And I love movies like that, Joe, because that's a whole other show. Mike, what do you think about the style and structure of this film?
A lot of this a lot of this really has to do with how they shot it, how they lit it, and how it was edited. They went with a more free flowing style of editing to where everything was, it's just kind of like, hey, like the way that it was shot, and let's put it together. And it just happened to be it came out to be a really good film. They never,
no storyboards.
Yeah, no storyboards. Yeah. They kept, like, that was one of the things, and the commentary for the Blu-ray had, it said they were talking, the director was talking to the cinematographer and was just like, whatever I say, just keep rolling. Like, don't ever stop. And there's that great, he's like, hey, that first bar scene, he's like, man, I didn't get anything. And he's just like, well, why do you tell me to, why do you say something? It's like, because you told me not to stop. So they would just film over and over and over again, see, like, just different scenes and just trying to get, like, the best take. I want to say that opening scene at the very beginning, where they're busting the guy, that was something like 20 to 25 takes.
Jesus.
Because they couldn't.
Well, they didn't get it right at first.
They couldn't get it right at first, but they had to get. That was the whole point. It was like they came back. They filmed that later, towards the end of the film, and
yeah, they refilmed it because Hackman's like, I'm not there yet, and
even Roy Schneider was the same way. He was just like, I'm not really. It's a very intense scene to start off with, so.
It was their first week of shooting, and they got to, like, rough up this fucking dude, and Gene Hackman seems like he's just such a nice guy.
And
he's like, why did I sign up for this? I don't know what I'm doing here. Man.
And he is, because, like, he said that, like, he felt really. That's where the whole Kubrick thing comes from the director and Hackman, because Gene Hackman didn't want to rough him up. He didn't want to go too hard, and it's just like, no, you're going to have to. And also, like, just a lot of the language, Gene Hackman wasn't a fan of a lot of having to say a lot of that stuff, and he was just.
And I forgive him.
So
I'm just throwing that out there.
But yeah, it's just the way that it's all, like Robbie was saying, guerrilla style, where you have the handheld cameras, the way the shots are looking. If you go back and look at the way, like, they could, it's outside when they finally capture the guy. After he cuts him with the knife, and then they're interrogating him, and just the way they throw him up against the wall, that close up, and then how, like, you see that one shot coming up from the stairs. You get a wide shot of how big the burned out building is. Like, it's like, even in the scene in the warehouse at the end, it's just everything is very wide, but it's also that way you can see. You can see the city. I don't know where I'm going, but I can't get it out. But yeah, it's the flow. Like, it's one of those, like, just the shot placement, everything that they did, everything that they chose. It just works. It's just kind of like, okay, let's put cameras. That's the whatchamacallit, the cat and mouse when they're trying to follow him. On the streets, and a lot of the shots, if you look at it, they're not. It's just like, here's a random camera, and we just happen to walk by it, and then you just see everybody kind of crisscross. And it's
what's cool is it actually builds geography, right? Which is something that a lot of films don't do, but you actually get the sense of this neighborhood that they're in, right? Because you keep going back to the same spots, and it, like, builds out this neighborhood from one focal point and out. So you actually get a sense of the geography, which is something you don't typically get in films.
Right, but like I said, and then in the shooting of it, there was no focal point. It was just kind of like, hey, we have a camera here and a camera here, because it's like when he goes into the restaurant, or he doesn't go to the restaurant, they go into the little grocery store, and Gene Hackman looks at the window, and he walks out, and he walks past him, and it's just, and then that other camera that shows him walking away, you see Roy Schneider coming up, and it's
Yeah.
just the way that just the placement of everything. So
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
like, a
saying.
lot
It
of
builds
that's-
it out because they set up Roy over there, and it moves around, and it's actually absolutely fantastic the way that stuff's shot.
and it's just a lot of that now. Like they're today, like you could still get some good shots like that, but you're not going to get. It'll be, the up close in front of your like it's. I don't know. I don't think that could be. It can be done today, but I think it's just very cliched. Cliche. Fuck, can't say that word. You know what I mean.
Speaking of
So-
cliche, Brooks, what do you think about the style and structure?
Well, I like the style of this movie. It's because it's just very, it feels very like real world, like, you see the flaws in the heroes and the villains aren't like so over the top. Like you don't see a villain in this movie like murder their henchmen for no good reason or anything like that. It feels like a story that could take place, in the real world.
You're still
No,
just
the
mad when the
characters-
Joker killed Bob the Goon, aren't you? Me too.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
Bob
it.
Gunn.
I still though love that Joker. But yeah, I think like that kind of realness actually like helps this movie too. It has like a grittier feel, like it just feels more genuine. Like even though like I said, I'm not as interested in the story. Like the execution of this movie is really good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the execution that works so well is the musical score. We always talk about music. This is done by Don Ellis, a jazz trumpeter, right? A drummer and a composer and a band leader. That's all from Wikipedia. But I love the music in this film. It's so weird when it starts because it's like blaring. And
The
it
opening
feels
like caught me off guard.
yeah, it feels like it's not going to match the tone of the film, but it does throughout. And I would guarantee you that John Williams saw this film and was influenced by this film for Jaws, because there are moments during the whole like cat and mouse chase stuff where you hear the bum, 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 bum. Like it's there, like the prototypical bits that are going to make Jaws score. That is here. I think John Williams was influenced by this. I think it was a very influential film. The music's a big part of that. What do you think about the music, Jelani?
Ugh, you're too glowing, man. I don't like jazz, so I don't like this music. I don't know. It is jarring. It takes me out of it. Like it's just, especially the beginning, the title crawl for it. I'm just like, every time too. Because like the first time I saw this movie, I was like, I don't like that. And then the second time I saw it, and I was like, I don't like that. And then the third time I was like, it's coming. So I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm not a fan of jazz. It's too clunky. It's just in there. There are scenes where it does work. The cat and mouse, you are right. It is very it's deliberate in the music that it's trying to make. But at the same time, that score for me, I have to get through it. Like they're just sometimes, man, they're just sometimes with it. And it's the only thing with this movie that I just think is just very disjointed from the rest of the film. Now, you guys may be different on that opinion, but the second I heard it, the third time I've seen it, I was like, yeah, I just can't get into this. It's just not me. And I just, something about jazz, man. Something about jazz.
Oh, fair enough. I get it. But I love it because there's the bit when they're in the bar and Popeye's getting his like gut feeling about this table. Yeah. There's this like high pitched thing that comes in and in the middle of it. And I love that everybody's flying to the moon fucking song. Like that captures something for me. Yeah, and I do like it. But fair enough, Jelani, man, we all got to have our own experiences. Speaking of experiences, the Joe Corallo experience is right here, right now. What do you think about the music, bro?
No, it works for me in the context of the movie. I think it fits it well. Jazz isn't something I tend to gravitate towards in general. I just listen to a little bit of it. But it works here in that like it follows that like that loud, quiet, loud kind of philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you forget anything's happening, the movie will be very quiet, and then out of nowhere you'll get like that like thing like that going. I'm like, oh shit, yeah. And the warehouse when they go in at the end, and that stinger, like that's the one that really after the beginning, like that's the one where you're like, oh shit, right, okay, wow, like it really like pulls you into that scene. And yeah, like there are other like you're saying during the chase, and there's other bits like that too where it's timed really well in that it like gets loud again, but for so much of the film too, like for a lot of the waiting around, it's very quiet. So all that I feel blends together and works well for what the movie's trying to do.
Absolutely. What about you, Mike? What do you think about the music? Since you're music Mike here on PCP Movie Night.
The music works really well for the film. It's kind of like all three of y'all kind of hit on it, on everything, how it goes. It is influential. The opening is very loud and jarring, but it's shocking because it's like a nice wake up alarm, and then it's kind of got
compare that to some of the horror films
right
of the time, right? Too, especially like it's like it is incredibly influential. Yeah.
I also love the fact that they use I can't remember what the sound actually. I said it talked to you earlier about it. It's like that all points bulletin that like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love how they like it's a thing that you hear in all just film noir movies and shows. It's just that like here, be on the lookout for blah 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 blah, and how that's incorporated into the music. So I think it has. It's another one that I think a lot of this, especially in like Kill Bill Volume 1, you can see influences from this time period. Because I mean, at the same time, you had Shaft come out in the same year, so you have all these different people working with different musics and different styles, and it's just it's nice to see the different or hear the different hear the different music in all these movies at this time that would become so influential later down the road. So the jazz works, everything's just kind of fun with it. It has its lulls and its highs. Everything just kind of fits just right. It really peaks at the beginning and then it's fitting at the end. So, and then it's just kind of it's very subtle.
You mentioned peaking in the beginning, finishing in the end. That is Brooks. Brooks, what do you think about the music in this film?
I really like the music in this movie, actually. Like I like even like in the beginning, where it starts up and it gives you that boom. I actually like that. I like that it kind of caught me off guard. I like the way this movie uses those kind of deep cello bass notes, to build up suspense, and they use the piano to get that frantic energy when necessary. I think this is how a movie like this is the kind of soundtrack that is perfectly attuned to this type of movie. And I think it's great. I think it's probably one of the best parts of this movie. It's one of the parts I enjoyed the most, at least.
You almost brought a tear to my eye. You have gone from I didn't notice the music to just that most eloquent explanation of the music. You mentioned the frantic piano bits. Oh my, yeah. Brooks, I love you so. I love you so much. You're awesome. All right, let's talk about what this movie's trying to say. What's this movie saying to you? What's the theme, Jelani, to you?
Unchecked obsession. I think Popeye Doyle is the epitome of I see something, I want it, I want to get it. And like I said, I watched both films like back to back this last time, and it is still that he's not supposed to be liked. But once he has his eye on something, and this is throughout this film and throughout the other film as well. But once he has his eye on something, it is unstoppable. You cannot get past it, and he has this obsession and I think even towards the end of this movie, it's to his detriment because he kills an FBI agent who, by the way, the entire time is telling him the last thing I worked with you on, you killed a guy. You got someone killed, so I don't trust you. And he builds that up. And he is he is of course the main character, but he is severely flawed in this action. Now it gets the job done in a way, but I hate that it ends in a crawl. I do hate that they do that explanation at the end.
I feel like that's
these
tacked
people-
on. I almost feel like the movie should end with the gunshot.
Yeah, it should just be the gunshot in the movie. Because French Connection 2, it ends. Baby,
See,
it's over.
here's the thing. So I got French Connection, and I have French Connection 2, but I've never seen French Connection 2.
French Connection 2 might be, it could be better. It puts Popeye Doyle in a real situation. Like, he has to go to France. He has to go to Marseille and actually find Alan and figure out this drug trade. And no one there is on his side. But he's a prick to begin with, but no one's on his side on top of it. And then something happens that's so messed up in that movie, and they spend a really long time like going over what happens with Popeye in this movie, because it's really dark. It even gets to the part where this old lady is just the weirdest thing in the movie. But it tells about his obsession, and it tells about his life, and it takes a weird turn in that film. But this one, it does the same thing, to where he just pushes his limits. And I just think it's that obsession that is to his detriment. Like I said, at the end, it ends with the gunshot, and he never catches the guy.
Yeah.
And the second movie, of course, he catches him. But it's just different.
I think in real life, they never caught the dude, by the way. In real life, they never caught the dude.
Never caught the real guy. The real guy never got caught.
I'm going to riff off you and go next real quick, because that's what I was going to say. This you nailed it right there with uncontrolled obsession. I was going to say this movie is Moby Dick.
Mm-hmm.
Popeye Doyle is Captain Ahab.
Mm-hmm.
The French dude, Frog One, is the white whale, right? Like that's what's going on here, and that's what they're doing. They do this great job of putting this juxtaposition against the life of the French dude, this life of privilege, fine things, all this stuff, and then Popeye's living in squalor. They intentionally made it look like his apartment looked like a prison. Everything in his reality is very cold. His whole life is dedicated to this one purpose. And some may look at that and see it's noble, but it's to the detriment of his own life. Like, he has nothing else aside from the job. And we have seen so many cliched, tired-ass movies that do this trope, but nobody does it as well. Because like Joe was alluding to earlier, every other film would be like, I'm a cop in New York City. I get down and dirty and break the rules to get the job done. And no one likes me. I have nothing else in my life but the job. And I like women in high boots. Anyway, that's what it is to me. It's a warning of obsession. What about you, Joe? What's the movie speaking to you?
All of that's in there, obviously. But I'd also add that I feel like this movie is about it's almost like a case for nihilism, and the reason and I will also say that in defense of the ending where it cuts to everyone, because you need that ending where it says what happens to everybody. Because nothing fucking happens to anyone. They all get off. Like, one guy spends like 4 years in prison. Jail, and then everyone else is like,
he was the least involved. He was the least involved.
The least involved has all that time in jail, and everyone else, they spent all that time. You watch this entire movie. People get killed. Lives are ruined. And at the end of it, they're like, whatever. What's the next case? And it's like,
get reassigned.
It's incredible in that the movie is really this like tale of, do we actually need order? And the movie really begs that question. It's like, this is what we get for order. Racist cops murdering people in broad daylight on the streets, and to what ends? It's like, oh, they stopped one drug deal, kind of.
Sorta. We got the drugs though. They got the drugs.
Yeah, and with the implication that and again, because the movie doesn't treat you like you're the dumbest person alive, the implication there is the French are connected to the department and got a lot of people off.
Yeah.
You don't tail people like that. Like, you're not on top of people like that and just let them leave the country. That doesn't happen unless you have some connections. So, like, yeah. So in a way, it's like the French connection is also their connection to, the department, the government, all of these other things, wrapped in it too. So.
Yeah. And the whole, like you touched on something really nice, because all of this work, all of this obsession for what? A dry month in New York, as far as heroin goes? It's coming. There's always more. Like, all this work, and what have we done? All this effort against the wave, and maybe we stopped the wave, made it down, but there's another one coming. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You're right. This is a case for nihilism. I bet Jonathan Hickman likes this movie. What about you, Mike? What's this movie speaking to you?
Basically, it's saying that crime pays, and being a good person does not, or even a halfway decent person, or being a cop, I should say.
You can only be a good cop, maybe, and actually, he's breaking all the rules, man.
But I mean, even we never really saw a lot in Roy Schneider's life and how he lived. We just saw Popeyes and how what obsession caused him. But it's like the perfect scene is that they're eating the French dude's eating steak and whatnot in the restaurant, and Popeyes outside eating pizza and coffee that gets cold
out in the frozen cold,
out in the cold eating pizza, or being being like, just I'm in the warmth,
getting a dessert tray brought up to you, and they're all like, I mean, that's a great juxtaposition there. I love that.
And then, I mean, it goes back to the, like, look at the end, like, they got reassigned and taken out of narcotics, and you don't know, like, they lost
their FBI guy. He should have lost his job.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying,
if Popeye Doyle was in the world of Lethal Weapon, he'd be the goddamn hero.
Yep.
Blowing up buildings and shit.
Yeah, so it's just essentially like the bad guy. The bad guys have it easier. Like, they've just got the true victim is the innocent person on the street that gets murdered by cops and by crooks.
Yeah, or that poor dude just trying to run the goddamn train.
Oh, that dude.
He dies of like a heart attack or some shit. Yeah. You're like, goddamn poor dude, man. Because at first the guy's like, keep the train going. Then all of a sudden he's like, stop the fucking train. Stop the train.
I can't do it no more.
Yeah, it happens, man. Brooks, what's this movie saying to you?
Well, I think this movie's kind of about the kind of danger that comes with it, that kind of tunnel vision that someone like Popeye has, especially considering, the amount of authority he has. Like, the fact that, all he cares about is, getting his man, and he doesn't pay much heed to, like, all the damage that he leaves in his wake, because he's so focused on, moving ahead and to accomplishing his goal. But, like, people are getting hurt when he's, fucking driving around crazy and shit, and, firing his gun off. Like, there are real consequences to people, but, he just kind of refuses to see it because he's so focused on, looking ahead. And that's a real danger with a lot of, authority figures, especially like police officers. And like, it's an interesting character, the flawed police officer who's like just driven, by the work and everything. But it's also like there's like a danger inherent there too, and that they get so lost in doing the job that they don't even consider like why they're supposed to be doing that job in the first place.
Yeah. Damn. Mm-hmm. You guys all hit it. I just want to make one final statement about the end shot. And now I actually do like that whole bit where they give all the information, because we need that information to put in context that final shot. The French dude gets away. Popeye Doyle just shot this goddamn FBI agent, right? Killed this dude. Doesn't seem to care. Moves on and is shooting basically, since we know the dude got away, at shadows, right? Just still, regardless of the fact that he just killed this dude because he was shooting at something that he thought was something, but it was something else, and kills an innocent, doesn't stop him from firing his gun 5 seconds later. That's that dangerous obsession. And at the same point, what is, like Joe said, what's the point of all of it? Nothing changes. The bad guys get away. The good guys get transferred. So now they get to harass somebody else in another field of criminality, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, Taki says, tell him, Brooks, tell him. All right.
Michelle.
Time to rate the film. And you out there in the chat, if you watched French Connection with us, let us know. What do you think out of 5 you digs? And Jelani, out of 5 you digs, what do you give the French Connection?
Now, I love this film. I really do. But I'm gonna give it a 4 or 5, just because of music for me. I know everybody else loves it, but I just, something about it just doesn't really hit me the right way, and it jars me into a different place. But the film is beautifully paced. It's got a great cast. Roy Scheider doesn't get enough credit for being Cloudy in this movie. He's the one that really, like, he kind of shines as the balance to Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle's obsession. He kind of tries to bring
a very
him down.
thankless job too.
It's a very thankless job, and he doesn't, he's not mentioned enough for this film for it to work for me. But he does a really good job, and he's not in the second movie. The only 2 people in the second movie are Gene Hackman and Alan, the Frog One, Fernando Ray. So it's weird that he's just reassigned and he's just gone. It just sucks that they break the partnership up so that Doyle's not completely unchecked. But it's a great film. It's like I said before, it's a masterclass of what filmmaking should be. How people should take things, what they're given in the time period that they live in, and still give that slice of life of what it is to be a policeman in New York City trying to bust heroin dealers. It is such I put it in the same category as Friday, because that is also a slice of life movie. It shows the real part of South Central LA, and it just tells a story from a perspective you've never seen. That's why you win Academy Awards. You have to give that perspective out. And so I really appreciate the film. It's from 1971, way before I was born, but I still saw it. So it's still a touchstone. And it does what it needs to do to tell a story. And I think it is the first buddy cop film. And how they really, get 2 guys together that are there. One's on one side of the tracks, one's on the other, and they come to meet together to get the job done. Not that that's a trope, but that's how it started. I think this is how it started. So I really enjoy the film. I'll give it a 4 or 5. It's very clean to me.
Nice. What about you, Joe? What do you give it out of 5 you digs?
Even if I didn't like the movie, I'd have to give it a 5, because it changed everything. Like, we didn't have anti-heroes in film in the way we do now. Like, you don't have the Punisher. You don't have most of 70s cinema. You don't have a lot of things because of this movie. You don't have the growing fascination of this, like, awful guy who you're only kind of rooting for because he's trying to stop worse things. Like, that was all, like, new. Like, people kept replicating that over and over, but this was the first time it took. And it's a different kind of thing than, like, a James Dean Rebel Without a Cause. Like, that's not an anti-hero. That's a, like you basically saw the transformation from, like, the guy who's not, necessarily an upright citizen, but is like, I'm going to do things my way, change to, I'm going to do things my way to the detriment of others. And that fundamentally changed like everything. So that alone, it gets that 5.
Absolutely. What about you,
Awesome,
Mike? What do you
dude.
give this film?
I will give it a 5. I really like the way the pacing of the film is done. Love the way it's shot. The way it's lit. There's a whole just all the production side of everything, which makes me really like a film. The directing, the editing, the acting. It's all around a great film. It's a good case study for modern film students to watch and learn. So kind of groundbreaking for an American film, copying that French New Wave kind of style. So yeah, that's it. Give it a 5.
Absolutely. What about you, Brooks?
I give it 3.5. I mean,
Jesus.
I didn't like
No,
it
no, it's
much,
fine.
but I mean, it's above average. It's an above average movie, but you know, I just didn't care much for it. It's just personally, I just didn't think it was that interesting, like
Okay.
story wise.
I feel you, dog.
But it is a very I can acknowledge this, a very well put together movie. You know, I love the soundtrack, like I love the performances, but just not my cup of tea, I suppose.
Brooks does not like
I feel you,
cops.
Brooks.
Apparently, I guess.
I mean, I definitely.
But if you don't like
again.
cops,
I want
this
the
is a
kind of movie I
great movie.
I don't feel like watching the French.
It don't help it.
I feel you, man. I feel you. If there was a good MacGuffin there, right? Like if they're all trying to find this like
Was there no cosmic cube in this?
like a
movie?
ganja falcon or something.
Listen, it was a
Made out
brown
of
Lincoln
marijuana.
Continental. The brown Lincoln Continental.
Yeah,
was
the
the
car should have
MacGuffin.
been made out of weed.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's a Cheech and Chong movie all of a sudden.
The car is the weed.
For me, I'm going 5. 5 you digs. To me, it's a perfect movie. I actually agree with the Academy for this year. Like it's fantastic. I love the performances. Love the way it was shot. And to me, the greatest watershed moments in cinema history happen when there's a new cinematic revolution in some corner of the world, and that then influences American cinema and outward. And that's what was happening here. And it influenced 10 plus years of filmmaking, like 100%. This 70s films look and are shot the way they are because of the French Connection, in my opinion. Like it influences Spielberg. It influences Scorsese. I feel like this has a grounded realism that goes to influence some of my favorite horror directors like Romero and Argento. So I really applaud this film for what it does. I love the music. I love the story. I love the lack of a story, but like the fact that, like Joe was saying, it doesn't have to follow this Robert McGee story 3-act structure, maybe a 5-act structure if you're clever enough. It doesn't have to do that because it's just trying to be real. And sometimes life is a story in and of itself. In fact, life is a story. So there you go. Anyway, so a 5 from me and Mike and Joe. A 4.5 from Jelani, right? Was it 4.5?
Mhm.
All right. And a 3.5 from Brooks for a PCP average of 4.3778435. 65.
Oh.
Yeah. Math doesn't always work to our benefit.
We don't
Anyway.
do it here.
Thus concludes our movie review for French Connection. I think it was a great one to do for ActionFest, especially because of that car chase scene. Join us next week where we're talking about an action film that's also a comedy and a little bit of a fantasy film. We're talking about The Golden Child, starring Eddie Murphy. I have not watched this movie since I myself was a golden child.
Yep.
So really excited for that one. We're going to have a great show. But before that, join us Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're having a conversation with Dennis Camp. He just wowed everybody with Agent of World. He's going to wow us again with 20th Century Men and Bloodshot Unleashed. Excited to bring Dennis back to the show. He's one of my favorite people in the industry. Then we got Dylan's Horror Show. This has been the show that Dylan's wanted to do since he started, and the show I've been most not wanting to do since he started. We're talking about the Firefly trilogy from Rob Zombie. House of a Thousand Corpses,
Jesus.
Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell. So there
luck,
you go.
man.
So Thursday night, Dennis Camp. Saturday night, commiserate with me, please, on Dylan's Horror Show. And then next week, The Golden Child. Jelani, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
Man, that car chase is clean. I really love it, man. I can't stop thinking about it. I might watch it again. Watch this movie if you really like car chase scenes. Watch Bullet as well, and also watch The Blues Brothers, my favorite movie of all time.
Sure.
And you guys be good. Don't break nothing. And are you picking your feet? Are you picking your feet, Poughkeepsie? Are you?
I know the town of Poughkeepsie because of this fucking movie.
No.
Like I looked it up. I was like, that a real town? Or is it like
Yep.
Timbuktu? Timbuktu's a
Yep.
real fucking place. Anyway,
Mhm.
Joe, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
No problem. This just makes me want to watch more 70s movies with Gene Hackman. I'm due for a rewatch of The Conversation. It's one of my favorite films, so I'm probably going to watch that later this week or next week. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I've never seen that film, so let me know what you think of it again.
I will.
Mike, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
Don't do drugs.
It's a good one.
Thank you, Dare Officer Mike, the voice Matthews. Brooks, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
Never trust a Popeye who's not a cartoon sailor man. Because he's probably a cop.
Fuck the police.
My final thoughts, we're just gonna leave it at that. I was gonna do the picking your feet thing, but we
sorry, beat you.
I'll just say station and pop, boom.